What is going on out here? We got a dead Ron.
Dude, it is nice out.
It is really nice out.
This wonderful, all natural, fresh, organic Florida weather. Welcome to Snailworks, everybody. Today we're going to be going over one of our personal in-shop builds. We're actually going to be going over our Booger car, as we so call it. So we're going to go right here in the shop. We got Ron inside, Allison on the camera today. We're going to be more or less taking the car back apart. So for any of you who follow us or know us as Snailworks, know me as Snail, you may have already kind of seen a little bit about this car. It more or less started out as a 1999 OG 9.3. I mean, we pretty much have gone over this car completely. We rushed it in 7 days. So what started out as a pretty much rusty beater that was gonna more or less be scrapped, we went ahead and decided to make it into something kind of cool and unique. And what a lot of people don't realize is what actually goes into building a cage car like this is something that takes a lot of time. And the fact that we did it in 7 days is pretty impressive in our opinion. Now, what I will tell you, when we went to start it and we were going to drive it to the Saab Owners Convention in Chicago, it started leaking profusely out of the transmission because of a slave cylinder leak, so we did not end up making it. So today we are going to be taking it completely apart. Motor and transmission are going to be coming back out. We are going to be effectively doing a compound setup now on this car. Now, as you can see, some of the basic modifications and things we have done to the car. Right now it sits with a relatively large GTX 30. That's going to be coming out. We're going to be going to a much larger setup. We've got a custom intercooler on here. Something else that's kind of unique with the car is we actually converted it to a F35 hybrid setup. So the car actually is cable shaft driven. Those cables are actually being utilized from a 2005 NG 9.3, and that essentially has been converted more or less into a proper shifting transmission in our opinion, and it is utilizing Vigan axles, it's utilizing a Vigan hubs. So,
and don't mind the brake fluid that leaked.
So we did get brake fluid, did get all over it, even on the valve cover, things like that. So today, Ron and I and Allison, all three of us are going to kind of dig into it, kind of show you the deconstruction of the car, kind of go over some of the things we're going to change, get the car back on the road, running and driving, and go from there. We're going to go ahead and take off the wheels and drop the subframe. After that, we will be taking off a lot of the accessories, the turbo, and obviously taking the exhaust off. Pretty easy, it's just a V-band. But we're going to be taking off all the electrical connectors, go through all that. Now, we are going to be tucking a lot of those as well, changing kind of a few of the things that we did. The catch can system, we're going to change that, redo that as well. And then some of the accessories are also going to get modified slightly. So we're going to get to it. So there's a couple other modifications we want to go over real quick before we dig into everything. We do have some Eurospec Combi NG 9.3 taillights that we really thought looked really cool. Those were not offered in the States, so as you can see, we actually went in and took out that other amber in the bottom, so it's completely de-redified, I guess you would call it. We have our third brake light back there, it's pretty cool, but we did custom coilovers as well. We did get a little overspray on there, we're going to clean that up. The whole car, we're going to go over a lot of it. We also have some custom brakes on there. Those are actually Porsche Brimbos that we're going to be offering for sale on the website. So we've got Ron over there on the other side taking the one wheel off. Before we take this side off, I just kind of wanted to reiterate a couple things real quick. The end goal with this car is to make somewhere between 600 to 700 wheel-ish and be right around the 2,000, under the 2,200 pound mark. When it's all said and done, it should have a pretty ridiculous power to weight ratio, pretty much something that's going to hang with pretty much anything on the road, that is. Now, as you can see here, we do have a relatively aggressive tire. This is a 275 in the front. We will be actually increasing these 275s to probably a 295 in the near future just to help with traction. Now, the transmission in the car now does effectively have an LSD in it. We don't see that transmission lasting more than a couple months, to be honest with you, with the power goals that we're shooting for. Now, what we'll probably end up doing is either doing a Volkswagen, either a GTI sequential gearbox at a later date, or maybe throwing an F40 in it and keeping it a true manual. We haven't really decided yet, but as we get some runs and logs and stuff with this car in the near future, we'll decide what route we go after we blow up the transmission. So we're gonna go ahead and get this wheel off and then drop the subframe. So something that I like to point out to a lot of people, there are a few alternatives or a few options when it comes to strengthening the subframe. Something we will do that we do pretty commonly on the OG 93s is we actually weld the subframe essentially shut. As you can see, two of the bolts go up into the frame here, and what happens is this actually has a lot of flex and play. Now there are a couple of companies that make a 6-point brace. We actually just weld the subframe shut. It's just way better option. You can even take a relatively aggressive X-bar yourself and actually weld that on. So just depending on what kind of fabricating capabilities you do or don't have, that's something that you can consider. Now what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit all 6 of these bolts, take off the ball joints as well, drop that down. Once that's down, we'll have the rear motor mount here that we'll take off the 2 bolts here. And then we're going to go ahead and pull the axles out, and then we'll go ahead and drain the fluids as well.
Yum oil. How you do a proper oil change.
It smells like straight gas.
Yeah,
That's how it should smell, and it should burn your hand.
You having fun, Ron?
Yeah. Trying to get this thing in there. Oh, there it goes. Oh, shit.
Action shot.
Yeah, she's real close in the action right now.
Get it, Ron?
Yep, with the Kirk special.
Kirk special. Shout out to Kirk Russell.
Yes.
Ron made a mess.
No.
Ron made a mess, so it got everywhere.
God, Ron.
But we just drained all the fluids, so all the fluids are done. We are going to now pull the axles off. So the subframe, as you can see on the floor over here, is just laying over here. We're going to go ahead and pull the axles off. Once the axles are off, we're going to go on the top side. We're going to disconnect the cables, disconnect all the wiring, take the battery out, all that fun stuff, and drop the motor onto our cart. And then what we will do is we'll take the motor back apart as well.
Hopefully you can do that right here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll change the head slightly. We are going to open the head back up. We want to change out some of the top internals now that we're going to a compound setup. We need to build the head to up the RPM. We want to shoot somewhere between the 76 to 8,000 range, so we will need upgraded valve springs, the new exhaust valves, and I do believe it has new intake valves in it already, so we're just going to essentially pop those springs out, upgrade those springs, and then probably put some new tappets in as well, because the tappets that we threw in were just used out of the head that were originally on the car. So we're going to go ahead and knock that out, show you what that looks like when it's out. We're going to go a little bit more in depth about the car as well too, but pretty straightforward at this point. So we went ahead, took the axle nuts off. Ron is getting the other side off. Now I want to show you guys some things real quick. Now this is an upgraded kit that we do offer. It's pretty common actually in the Saab world. It's a 315, 316, depending on who you talk to. Millimeter Brembo. Now we typically will do the 330 or the 314 Porsche Brembo on the OG 93s, but we do offer this as well. We also are looking at upgrading this to a 345 millimeter rotor with a 6-piston is what we're thinking about it doing as well, just because it kind of looks goofy having a 4-piston in the back and 4-piston in the front, in my opinion. We've kind of talked about it amongst the crew here and deciding that a 6-piston just looks cooler. It's a little overkill, honestly. It's gonna be stupid overkill, but when in doubt, why not? And if you look up here, we do have those Vigan hubs, and we had a really rusty set of Vigan hubs. Now, as you can see, they look pretty crusty. We're gonna redo all this. This is a custom coilover spring setup. Now we do this often. Now this was, once again, kind of like a budget build. We just kind of quickly did it. So we're gonna be slightly changing the front strut assembly slightly, and then we'll more or less take all of that off at a later date as well. We're gonna get the motor transmission down first, and then we're gonna put the subframe back on, and then allows us to do a rolling chassis. Ron getting the axle out like a boss.
No, I'm getting the cables off now.
Oh, shift cables.
I already got my axle.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm probably behind. So typically taking axles out, once the subframe's off, it's actually pretty straightforward. You just kind of pull this out, pull this down. Try
Our
not to hit.
gooby brake line.
Yeah, and this axle being a Vigan axle, this was also off the same parts car that we snagged the hubs and tower here.
And had an interesting grounding issue.
Yeah,
that
we had a grounding issue. We got all the electrical
melted.
back together, and for whatever reason melted our stainless brake lines, which was kind of interesting too. So something else that's a fun upgrade for OG93 customers out there watching, or anyone that wants to do your own what we call budget modification. I've been doing this probably for close to 16 years, where I've done this on numerous OG93, especially all my Vigans. I'll actually run the 9.5 oil cooler. It's pretty much straight bolt-on in the grand scheme of, how should I say, zip tie bolt-on, I guess. So you can modify these. As you see, this one is zip tied on just to hold in place.
a zip tie on.
So it's a zip tie on, but you can drill holes in it and mount it properly. The only issue you will run into with an OG93, the intercooler and the way everything's set up in the front. So you will have to kind of extend it down. So if you are extremely lowered, you may have to kind of finagle that in there a little differently. But this is a great upgrade for anyone that's looking for a upgrade. Now, the thing that I always say is really annoying and really ironic, especially with the Vigans, is you got to think back in 2001, you've got or we could say 99 to 2001, you got a 9.5 Aero making the same power as the Vigan, more or less. And the Vigan, intercooler's half the size, oil cooler's half the size, and they expected the car to make the same amount of power as the car with a much larger intercooler and an oil cooler. So I've always thought that was kind of redundant and stupid. One thing Saab always did. So easy upgrade for anyone that's looking to do a cheap junkyard upgrade. So I want to show you something real quick. Now, as you can see, we actually have one of our customers' Vigans in the back too that we're in the process of building as well. So you'll see that full build on the channel too. If you want to check that out, you can click the link right here, and they'll take you over to that build and what's going on with that. That being said, though, I have two things I want to show you guys about the OG 93s and 95s again. Something else that a lot of people don't quite understand in the OG 93 world, or if you do understand it, is a problem that we tend to have. So I have a Vigan axle here, and I have a 9.5 axle here. For anyone that owns a Vigan, you know finding Vigan axles is not a thing. You cannot buy these anymore. You have to source the individual components, build them yourself. But what you run into, in particular with a high-powered OG93, is you run into a problem with snapping these splines off. So what ends up happening is this whole end component here will actually break off. You'll fracture it here because it's less material. Compare a 9.5, very beefy, compared to a Vigan, you can see the substantial difference. So pretty much 2002 and up, you're not gonna really have issues in the 9.5 world. Now 01 and back, it is a different axle. But 2002, 9.5 and up, you're gonna make plenty of power. You're gonna be able to put it down. Well, when I say put it down, you're gonna be able to put it down. Your transmission will break before your axle usually. Where the Vigan, you are going to be snapping these left and right. Once you get past that 400 to 450 wheel mark, you do start to break these. So something to take into consideration. We are trying to find a good solution to fixing these, either be making a solid billet or something along the lines, but this is a huge break point. Now, I've got a aftermarket one here. As you can see, it's relatively easy to still get a hold of these. You can buy this individual component. So what ends up happening is you take your standard Vigan axle, you're actually gonna tap out that, it actually slides out. It's more or less spline there, and then that comes out, you pop in a new one. So you have to get really good at changing these if you tend to go past the 450 mark on an OG 93. Sometimes you can get upwards of 500, and that tends to be when they break. So now you have to properly dispose of your coolant into the coolant reservoir. He's gonna spill it everywhere.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
You're going too fast. You're going too fast.
Dude.
Everywhere.
And as you can see just below here, Ron blew up his Garrett on his daily, so he decided
Left
to take
the
a
turbo mess.
decided to take
Ron leaving messes everywhere. That's what he does.
mess maker. So we're actively taking off all the electric connectors and sensors and whatnot. And Ron is struggling.
Hey. It's
5.
tight in here, but I got it. Look, I ain't struggling anymore.
No, I ain't struggling anymore. Yeah, so what you don't know
Get the
is for the
camera
last
out.
20 minutes the camera has been running. He's been
not
sitting
20
there.
minutes.
Oh,
maybe like
whatever.
a
Get out of
minute.
here. Get out of here. So we're going to take the whole harness off now. If you had like a 9.5, you usually can take the harness with the motor when you drop it, but OG 9.3 stays with the car. Now, in our case, we could actively probably take the harness out because it takes 2 seconds to get to the plug. But we're going to go ahead and leave the harness in here for now because we're going to be mocking that up later for doing sort of like a tuck, we'll say. Primarily to help with moisture if we do get caught in the rain in the car. But other than that, we're going to go ahead and pull the harness off everything. We just got to get the lead on the starter and alternator at this point, and we'll get that out. So you can just kind of follow me over too, hon.
You just need to take it up in there.
Wait, I still got this plug, Ron. Look, you
That was
didn't
for
get
you.
this.
That was for you to get.
Wow. Oh, for me to get it. Okay.
Gotta share.
Sharing is caring. Oh, you need to get the ground off here.
Dude, I told you, there's more stuff to get.
Oh. One thing that is nice about working on cars like this, A, it's not a big deal if you hurt anything, but B, it takes literally an hour maybe to drop the motor and transmission, maybe 2 if you're being lazy, which is really nice because this is one of those cars that's probably going to frequently go through transmissions until we figure out that end-all solution. So it is kind of nice that we can drop this relatively quick. I mean, and we're not removing a lot of stuff you traditionally would move if you were to have a similar build. Something else, if anyone's noticing on the throttle body, we have a couple things capped off. That's something that I do frequently here in Florida. We like to do that here at Snailworks, and that's deleting your coolant lines. Whether it be on a T7 or a T5 car, we frequently delete the coolant lines. A, we're not going to be in sub-zero temperatures where we're worried about our throttle essentially being frozen shut. And B, I mean, that's just warming up your throttle body, which means your your intake temps are going to be significantly higher.
Your temps.
Yes, temps.
Your temps.
Intake temps
Watch
are
out for
going
those
to be
temps.
significantly higher, having those coolant lines on there. So we typically remove those in cars that are what I call below the rust belt. So if you're like Atlanta or the Carolinas, places like that, I always recommend to remove them. Now some people argue, oh, that's going to affect your startup temp time and your startup fuel map, blah, blah. No. Get out of here. No.
Run along. Did you?
Oh, yeah, right here.
Wow.
Oil pressure sensor's not unplugged too.
Dude, I left some for you. I can't take all the fun.
Can't take it.
Hey, look, she's not even getting it. Oh, there she is. There she is.
Dude, our hands are touching.
Dude, that happened.
That's weird. Gosh, Ron.
It's not the first
Touching me.
time. He acts like it's the first time.
No, there'll be many more times. So we've disconnected pretty much everything, ready to lower the car down. We're going to use a cart and a piece of nice cushion, aka cardboard. And we're going to push this underneath. This is just quick and easy. We're going to push this under, lower the motor transmission onto it, and she's pretty much ready to go. There it is. Now, inner core piping's off, all the coolant lines are off, all the electrical connections, grounds, thing that's that. Thing that's also important is your throttle cable, oil pressure sensor is in the back as well, and then your main lead that goes to the starter and the alternator as well. So we're going to undo the motor and transmission mount now on each side. And then once we undo those, the motor is essentially going to be sitting on the cart. We'll slowly lift it up, make sure there's no clearance issues, and the motor and transmission will be out. You can see Ron is a professional at making messes. Look at this mess. It's Ron's fault.
No, not my fault.
It's your
Ron
fault.
over here.
Ron's fault. He loves making messes. So something, if you look at the engine bay too, something we typically do just for the sake of not making a mess, and especially if you're using the proper power steering, CHF 202 or 11, whatever you're using, it's relatively expensive for the little amount of fluid you get. So a lot of times we'll actually just leave the power steering pump still in the car and disconnect it from the motor when we drop the motor. So we're gonna go ahead and lift it up now. All right, here, keep going. You're good, keep going. It's not a side visor. Top one. Bring it back down slightly. Slightly, bring it back down a little bit more. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Dude, it's stuck on the lock.
I'm gonna go back up and pull the locks.
Oh,
Go ahead, go ahead and go back up. Keep going. Oh, damn it.
That got me.
Oh, well. Bleep. Hang on a second, Ron. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
This is how.
Tony made the mess now.
Yeah.
No, that was Ron's mess. So.
Oh!
Maxed it out.
Trying to break
So-
the pump. Booger will be stuck up there.
I'd say probably about 20-25 minutes to do that. Huge advantage not having all the stuff around it. So the most
Who
important
needs
thing
stuff?
is making sure
Not
you
I.
have clearance when you do that. It's a really tight clearance leaving the turbo on. Real quick, just want to show everybody. So traditionally, you would have a similar looking transmission. So this is a Vigan transmission plate here, the bell housing side of the transmission. And as you can see, there's kind of like a color transition. This section actually is 2005, I think is what Kart came out of. 2005, 2006, NG93. Now we obviously modify the shift linkage and all that stuff, but as you can see, the shifters are cable shaft shifter here versus the traditional rod. These tend to take a little bit more abuse over the rod shifting, and does have some of the updated gears and components inside the transmission compared to the older F25/35 that was found in the Vigans and the 95s. So this is kind of essentially what it looked like. All bolts on pretty much similarly. Not a lot of modifications needed to make this setup work in the grand scheme of putting the stock OG 93 mount on to this section, straight bolt on. As you can see, you're still utilizing this older transmission plate, so this mount goes on there. So pretty straightforward for anyone else out there trying to do something different or go to that cable shaft aspect. So we do have a problem at the shop. We do have a problem here. So that is that our lift on our current car here, Justin, the pump took a crap. So we are waiting for that to show up. It's gonna be about another 5 to 6 business days. So we are actually gonna be putting the subframe back on this car. And once we have the subframe on, we're gonna actually roll it out so we can utilize this and get his car done. Now, that being said, we will get back on this build once we have the motor apart. We'll kind of show you some of the things we're doing to the motor, some of the, I should say adaptations, things that we're gonna modify slightly, and then kind of show you guys what the compound setup's gonna look like. Now, something you guys may notice up here too, we're gonna go through and kind of clean some of this up, some of the wiring and things. And like I said, when we kind of put this car together last, I guess a couple months ago, we really were trying to rush it to get it to SOC, the Saab Owners Convention up in Chicago. And we did this whole thing in 7 days. So we kind of cut corners on some things that we should have done a little differently. And so we're going to address a lot of those things. Some of the things being some of the wiring, the firewall here. We're going to be changing some of the ways that or I should say change the way that the rack is on there. The subframe is going to get changed a little bit, so we'll change some of those components as well too.
Vegan brake booster.
Yeah, and then that's something else we did too for the larger brakes. For someone that is wanting to go to a much larger brake setup, you will need to upgrade that booster to at least the Vegan brake booster. The OG 99, the 99 OG 93 brake booster was not adequate at all for that, so that had to be changed as well.
No good.
Sure.
Yeah.
So these are the larger calipers we're going to be going with. So we'll run actually the Turbo X rotor, ironically, which is substantially larger than these that are on here now. But for simplicity, we actually are making a bracket that's going to be utilizing this Brembo 6-piston to bolt straight on, utilizing the 345 Turbo X rotor. As you can see, we have the Booger car outside. It is a little noisy. We do do have a lot of hubbub around us right now, so I do apologize for that. But we do have Booger as a rolling chassis. We do have the subframe back on. Now we are going to be doing this in a 4-part series. So this is series, first episode of series. It is Booger Volume 1. We have 2, 3, and 4 for you guys later on, showing kind of what we're going to be doing with the build. Also on that note, you may have noticed we are in a different location. We are at our brand new shop location, so we have moved from our last location. Very complicated story. No need to go into details here or now, but just want to let everybody know that we are looking forward to making a lot of really unique content. This being one of our personal builds, we have a lot more cool builds like this for the future. So if you do like what you've seen so far, please like and subscribe to the channel. We are planning on doing a plethora of Saab, Audi, and Porsche content. And once again, thank all of you guys for watching, and as always, haters needed.